looking at our grammar/sentence structure lesson for this quarter, and we're going to be talking about active and passive voice. And the thing that I want you to remember when we're talking about active and passive voice is you need to think about who's doing the thing, all right? Who's actually performing or what is actually performing the action. Because it's supposed to always be the subject, but then when we're talking in passive voice, sometimes the person or thing actually doing something gets a little switched around. So in order to get the most out of this lesson, you're going to need a piece of scratch paper and a pen or pencil, because I'm going to be asking you to write some things down and try some things out. You're going to need a pair of headphones unless you're working at home by yourself, and then you're going to need the ability and readiness to pause the video when I tell you to. All right, because I'm not going to sit there and have like dead air for 2 minutes while I let you write things down. I just want you to pause it and write down what you need to write down and then move on. Okay, let's get going. In this lesson here by the end, you should say that you will be able to identify passive and active voice in sentences. So you'll be able to say, this is in the active voice or this is in the passive voice. And then you'll be able to identify who's doing the thing in sentences containing active and passive verbs. Who's actually performing an action? All right, let's move along. First of all, we're just going to do a very brief overview of what is the difference between active and passive voice. Active voice, and this is the dictionary definition, when the verb of a sentence is in the active voice, the subject is doing the acting. Okay, this is just a regular basic sentence. All right, a foul ball hit my car. What's doing the action? The foul ball. Conveniently, the foul ball is in the subject. In contrast, in passive voice, when the verb of a sentence is in the passive voice, the subject of the sentence is acted on by the verb. So looking at the same idea of a foul ball hitting a car, my car was hit by a foul ball. These two things actually mean pretty much the same thing, right? But in this case, the subject is my car. My car didn't actually do anything. My car did not hit a baseball, okay? The baseball hit my car. So in this case, the subject of the sentence isn't the thing actually doing the action. It's having something done to it. All right, what I want you to do right now is on your piece of scratch paper, number 1 through 5, pause right now if you need a second to do that. Ready, set, pause. And I'm going to move on to the next screen. What you're going to do in each of these 5 sentences, some of them are written in the active voice, some of them are written in the passive voice. You are going to write down who's actually doing the action or what is actually doing the action in each sentence. Okay, I'll do one as an example and then you'll have your 5. So you don't have to write down the example. So our example, the runaway dog was taken to the Humane Society by a stranger. So I'm going to look at this. I've got the runaway dog is clearly the subject, all right? It's the before the verb part, but it's not really doing anything. Okay, it was taken to the Humane Society. So it had something happen to it by a stranger. Okay, this word by is kind of a clue. Who actually did the thing? The nouns I can think of are dog, Humane Society, or stranger. Who's actually performing the action? The stranger. Way over here at the end in the predicate is actually the one performing an action upon the dog, taking it to the Humane Society. So a stranger would be the only thing I have to write down on my paper. Okay, I'm going to give you 5 sentences, and then after I've given you the 5 sentences, you may pause the video to write down and fill in any answers that you don't get to while we're doing it. The book was written by an anonymous author. My cousin Matt ate 8 hamburgers in one sitting. He actually did. It was really gross. The Legos were left on the floor by my careless children. It is a terrible, terrible book. I didn't mean it, the book. I just meant like it as in a random book. The ball was thrown. This last one's going to be a little tricky. All right. If you need to pause it right now to fill in any of your answers, go ahead. Otherwise, I am moving on in 3, 2, 1, click. So, our answers for this, remember, if you got them wrong, no judgment, no penalty, but make sure you understand why you were wrong. If you have any questions, ask a friend, ask a teacher, ask a parent if you think your parent might know, older brother, sister. You've got options. All right. The book was written by an anonymous author. Who's actually doing the book writing? The book isn't writing the author is writing the book. So an anonymous author. This one's in the passive voice. Okay, we've got this by that sometimes is a good clue. And then it's was written. My cousin Matt is the one who ate 8 hamburgers in one sitting. The hamburgers did not eat him. So my cousin Matt is the one doing the action. The Legos were left on the floor by my careless children. The person doing the action, or in this case, neglecting to do an action because they never pick up their Legos, my careless children. It is a terrible, terrible book. It is the subject, and it is also the one doing the action. Okay, this is a little bit trickier because, yes, it is technically a book, so you could put book, but in this case, you want to say it because it's in the subject and it's doing a thing. The thing that it's doing is, being terrible. And then the ball was thrown. Do we know who threw the ball? We don't. Now, we know the ball didn't throw anything. It didn't throw itself. But, I could think of, oh, the garage window broke. I don't know how it happened. I mean, the ball was thrown and it went through the window. Like you're trying to not say who exactly threw the ball. It was just thrown. So we don't know in this case. All right. Just a quick review of active or passive. All right. So for this one, I again want you to number 1 through 5. And this time you're going to either be writing active or passive. Okay. So if you've got one of those one of those sentences where the subject is actively doing the action, that is an active voice. Okay. If it's passive, it's usually something being done to something by someone else. Okay. So you're going to write either active or passive for these. We're going to go through them. And then again, if you need to pause, go ahead. The message was brought by a knight in shining armor. The knight in shining armor brought the message. Okay, so these two are pretty close to the same. One of them's active, one of them's passive. All right, so think, okay, which one's active, which one's passive? Number 3, silk was imported from China. Assignments are graded while watching Netflix. My parents signed their home loan paperwork. All right, if you need to pause right now, go ahead and click pause while you fill in active or passive for each of these. You don't have to write out the sentences again. And we're going to be moving on in 3, 2, 1. Here are our answers. So let's look at these first two together. The message was brought by a knight in shining armor, and the knight in shining armor brought the message. Same meaning, but the message was brought by a knight. The knight is actually doing the action. Okay, the knight in shining armor is actually the one bringing the message. But he's like sitting over here in the predicate as opposed to in the subject. So we would say this is in passive voice. As opposed to number 2, the knight in shining armor brought the message. Okay, he's doing the action and he's in the subject. So that's active. Silk was imported from China. Now, this is a weird one. We don't know who did the importing, okay? Could have been by the wealthy industrialist. We don't know who did this, but we just know that silk didn't import itself, and silk didn't import China. Silk had something done to it. It was imported, so it's passive. All right. Assignments are graded while watching Netflix. Here's another one. We don't know who did this. Did Ms. Shabilsky grade assignments while watching Netflix? Maybe. Was it Mr. Grote? Maybe. I don't know. But the assignments didn't grade the Netflix or the teacher who was not named. Somebody else did the thing to the assignments. They are graded. They are often graded while watching Netflix. And then number 5, my parents signed their home loan paperwork. That is active because they're doing the thing. My parents did the thing. They signed the home loan paperwork. Okay, the home loan paperwork did not sign my parents. I don't even know how that would work. It's not actually possible. So you can see that if the subject is actually doing an action, then it's active. All right. If the subject is having something done to it, assignments, silk, this message at the beginning here, then it is in the passive voice. All right. So quick review. A foul ball hit my car as opposed to my car was hit by a foul ball. All right. Same meaning, but they're phrased a little different. And here is the big question, which is correct? All right, because this is grammar and writing and spelling, and a lot of times there's, your teacher's up here saying this is the right way to do it. And here's what we're going to say for that. They're both technically grammatically correct. Okay, there's absolutely nothing capital W wrong with using the passive voice. But use passive voice sparingly, not very often, and use active voice almost all of the time. Okay, if you're using a lot of passive voice in your writing, it's not as effective. All right, you want to have the thing or the person doing the action as the subject, doing something, acting. Okay, so remember at the beginning we talked about our outcomes. So now I want you to think about, can I do these things? Okay, can I identify passive and active voice in sentences? Can I identify who's doing the thing in sentences containing active and passive verbs? If you are still having trouble with this, or if you're lost, please talk to your teacher or teachers, and we will be happy to help you out with this. Otherwise, your next step is to do vocab check, not vocab check, grammar check 1. Thank you and have a great day.